Jason.
Thank you. Welcome back to the Board of County Commissioners Issues and Administrator Update on this August 10th, resuming at 1:15 p.m. Gary, what's up?
All right, we're back to the issues list. Before we start policy sessions, we're returning to the topic of Administrators Housing Task Force update. So just very quickly, Commissioners, the Administrators Housing Task Force is an internal committee of staff with Commissioners Savas and Schrader. They meet every week with a particular assignment of looking at our supportive housing services funding, the flow of those monies coming from Metro, how we're going to cover the gap, and so forth. Their purpose is to work with staff on recommendations. They will come back to you on Tuesdays to discuss what was discussed in the meeting. This is not meant to be a 30-minute discussion. It's a 5 or 10-minute quick update. If you need more information, staff will talk to you offline. So that's the purpose of this. So with that, you really have like 5 minutes, Commissioners. So can you give a general update of what the group talked about and recommendations of moving forward? Thank you.
Yeah, Gary, and let me just add that if there's any decision points, there will be decision points, that those decisions will be brought to you with greater detail and greater discussion. So, you know, these are literally updates. So thank you for that, Gary. And I'm going to try and stay within the context of what was intended and within the time frame allotted. So, we talked about the spreadsheet. We'll be adding to that to try to put together a comprehensive list of the services and address the $8.2 million that it seems to be constantly coming back. But we're not there yet. Again, this is just a work in progress. And I'm going to apologize here. I'm going to look at my email roll. So the other, we also had a brief discussion on revenue forecasting, and the revenue forecasting, that being the supportive housing services dollars from Metro and disbursements, and as I understood from Elizabeth Comfort, that those revenues are probably not going to follow the model that Metro suggested, that being the Portland Energy Fund tax. It's not going to have that same flow rate and trend. So, and it might be actually a lot less dollars up until maybe April of next year. So it might actually be a little bit tighter. Therefore, there might be a need for the capital call. Martha, correct me if I'm wrong anywhere on this. There might be a need for the capital call for the $2 million earlier than projected, and not for the purposes of a ramp up, but just for the purposes of just trying to keep $10 million afloat. So that's hopefully, again, the cash flow projections will be better. Staff wanted to make sure, because of that, what they had learned from their discussions at the staff level, that they were kind of concerned that there may not be the money to actually produce the $10 million or to honor the contracts fully. And I think we conveyed to them that through 6 scenarios that they had given us, that one way or another we will put together a patchwork or a hybrid of maybe model number 3 or something like that, that gives us, that be the capital draw for the $2 million earlier than anticipated, to make sure that we can honor the contracts and go forward with the $10 million. Also, brief discussion that if there was more money, or more money came available in the future from Metro in the form of advance, brief discussion on, and more to come on that as well. Ask for some material on what that might look like, and how do we start filling some of the gaps when it comes to the other handout, and that is the people we're serving. That is the one on this initial 10 million rollout projection thing that's been circulated. You'll see on the right-hand side where it says the gap. My request to Jill and staff was, tell me what it cost. Tell us what it would cost to fill those gaps, and that's the other attachment I believe that came out today with that. So we'll be discussing that further and seeing if there's opportunities to increase that, and also the support of staff. What will it take to make, from a staff standpoint, how much time will it take to put that infrastructure in place here so we can roll those out? So more to come. That's my brief 5-minute update.
Commissioner Schrader, you have anything you want to add?
I would just wanted to say that, I think we can be flexible with this. If we do need more money, we can ask for it. I don't see us asking for a full $24 million, because I worry about us paying that back with interest. But as the money rolls in and as we move forward with this, I think we can be pretty flexible. And again, if we do need more money, I would suggest, well, let's take a look at it as it rolls out, okay? But I just want to make sure that, we can, if we do need to do another capital call, we'll do it. And that's where the flexibility and being fluid with this is going to have to come in.
Yeah, I did have a chance to talk to some folks at Metro a little bit, and I'll just add that, to that point, Commissioner Schrader, that until we solve or resolve with the Oversight Committee this questionable $8.2 million, which is obviously, instead of being a cut, it's actually $11.4 million. Once that's resolved with the Oversight Committee and everything, I think we might be in a position to maybe ask for more money at that point. But until this is resolved, I don't think that Metro is going to roll out any more funds our way if they don't feel that we're spending it correctly.
Okay.
Interesting, okay. Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, thank you. When you talked about the potential advance and you said they were going to be looking into it for more information, what exactly is happening with that?
I don't know. I don't know. It's because that was a staff level communication, as Jill explained last week. So what I've learned is that the Metro Council is not knowledgeable of it completely, or nor has the council discussed it as a whole. I think some councilors may know a little bit about it, but so forth. But I think it's going to be based on request, and I don't think it's a 20. I don't know. They're going to have to determine what that is.
When you say they, are you talking Metro?
Metro Council, yeah.
Okay, because our last gathering, Chair Smith had suggested that the task force look at that to figure out what next steps might be.
Sure.
And Jill Smith had mentioned that we would need to make that request. So I'm just curious what the status of all that is.
And we'll, as more information comes in and we're gathering information, we'll be discussing that every Thursday and try to provide the updates. But right now, we don't have a complete enough answer to that question yet. So
We have not asked the Metro Council for any additional dollars above the $5 million.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. So like I said,
I'm wanting to know what the process is to get the information.
that's what we're trying to find out right now. There's staff level communications and there's elected level communications, and as I said, I think it's dependent on solving this uproar. I'll just tell you, I think this $8.2 million deal has really slowed things down, in the sense that I kind of wonder. I get the sense from what I'm hearing that until this is resolved, and we can prove that we're implementing the LIP in good faith. I would sense that there's probably going to be some reluctance to give us any more money beyond the 5.
Okay, well, according to this, with the things that will not be occurring that are part of the LIP, I'm interested in knowing how we are implementing a $24 million LIP with $10 million when it's showing that we're not doing certain things.
Yeah, Commissioner Fisher, I'll just stop here and say that we can't implement a $24 million LIP with $10 million.
Okay.
That's not.
Yeah, we're 14 million. We're 14 million short, plus the staffing and the infrastructure. That's why none of the counties are doing a full implementation of the plan, because they need to build the infrastructure to make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, Gary, what's up next?
So
I think
just for process-wise, I have a lot of additional questions, and I don't know, I'm not clear on what our process is to engage with Metro. There are many people out there in the community that are connecting with us and wanting us to implement the plan, especially if there's an opportunity for Metro to provide that funding. I have at the chair's blessing connected with Aetna, Providence, Kaiser, Oregon Community Foundation, the Federal Reserve. I've been looking to raise dollars.
and you've come up short.
Well, to fill that gap. It's been really good conversations. And one of the suggestions was that Metro help us. And
Okay, that's good.
potentially on
And
the
you know the
table.
process, and the process is that Commissioners Savas and Schrader are liaisons to the Metro on this measure. They have been assigned the task force. They're going to meet every Thursday after our business meeting to make our way through this. We have said this a lot. If you want more information, a memo will be put out. I get the same memo as you do. as Mark gets. We are fully apprised, and we're just in a holding pattern until more money comes through. There's nothing new and different about any of this. The $24 million that was supposedly put out there is not real. I would agree with Commissioner Savas. I think we are being held up. There's a very good spreadsheet with 24 different funds that are being put out to our nonprofits. And it started out, the baseline at 8.2 million, I understand is at 11.4 million because we have more funding coming in. It's actually more than what was purported to be. So I think if you have further questions, feel free to submit those to Commissioner Savas and Commissioner Fisher or Commissioner Schrader. And they will take the time or not to answer them. I think that's all the time we can spend on this today because we have a very full agenda. Gary, what's up next?
All right, let's do one more issue topic, advisory board and commission appointments. Shannon, would you do that, please?
Yes, we just have one today. The Clackamas County Community Health Council, under Health, Housing, and Human Services Department, has a recruitment for their consumer and non-consumer representation. This advisory committee holds a current roster of 13 members. They voted unanimously at the regular meeting on July 21st for Carissa Bishop to be appointed to her first term to end September 30th, 2024. That is all I have.
Any comments on this? Do I hear a motion?
Move approval?
Second.
Commissioner Schrader has moved approval for the ABC on the Health Council. Commissioner Savas has seconded that. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Shannon, please take the poll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Schull?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Shannon. Gary, what's up
Thank
next?
you. We'll come back to the issues list later. The first policy session is sale and purchase of county-owned policy, sale and purchase of county-owned property policy. We have the Finance and County Council team here to present. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, Kathleen Rastetter, Assistant County Counsel. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Smith and Commissioners. As you'll recall, originally the board had received a complaint, an ethics complaint, about the sale of county property to a county employee. We investigated that, found it was not sustained, but the question came up whether we should have a policy about the sale of property, county-owned property, to county employees and elected officials. We decided that we should. I had brought this to you in executive session on April 6th, and you approved moving ahead with a policy tentatively at that time. I then worked on a policy. I took it to the policy committee that the county has. After several sessions, they approved it on May 20th. We then had to send it out to the unions for any comment they might have as required by PECPA. That happened. They had no comments. So then I brought it back to you on June 15th at issues, and with the request that we move forward with the policy, property policy, and you approved moving forward with that. So we're here today. It was determined that finance would hold the policy, and so I worked with Krista Wolf on that. Krista's sick today, so Elizabeth has graciously sat in her place. But we worked on this policy with finance as well as property resources. And I understand that there may have been a question about auction and whether we auction off the sale of personal property. And so I'd like to point the board to the end of this proposed policy where it cites two related policies. And the BCS property policy covers real property. The second cite is to the Local Contract Review Board rules, the LCRBs. That cite 0460610 and the subsequent cites in the LCRBs governs the sale of personal property from the county. And so in my work with finance, I learned that all departments should be following that LCRB to sell personal property. And in fact, I worked with Jan O'Gara from Procurement and learned about their process. And just to let you know what that is, for vehicles and bigger equipment and that kind of thing. They send it to her. She then uses Gov Deals, and that's an outside entity that does public bidding. It's a public bidding process, and so all the bids go to Gov Deals. Gov Deals determines the highest bidder. The bidder pays Gov Deals, and then Gov Deals remits the balance. They do take a small fee for doing that, but then they remit the balance to the county. So all departments should be using the LCRB rules, and then the bigger equipment and vehicles and that kind of thing are sold through Gov Deals, which is a public bidding process. The LCRBs do distinguish between property that's under $5,000 and over $5,000. So just so you know, there's a distinction there on how it's handled. But that's the process the county uses. This policy proposal would mean no county employee should bid on any county-sold property, whether it's real or personal. It's a complete ban. And then I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the policy itself.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I'm okay with this policy. I think it accomplishes what the direction was. So job well done, thank you. On the auctioning piece, I think it's, incumbent upon us to make sure that in the best interest of the district that we receive as much of the proceeds or, and we get as much money back into the county as possible. And the best way to do that obviously is to put it out there in a advertised public sector way that it's easy to find. It's not, you understand the gist of it. And so I think it's probably easier on a website that auctions items like that than it is perhaps on property. Property's harder to navigate for some people to find. So, but as long as we can well advertise that, as well advertised and access to all, then I'm fine.
And I should just mention, we do have property resources here as well today to represent it, but they do advertise the sale of the real property that we're selling, whether it's foreclosed or just county-owned property in general. And the sale of that property is governed by state statute, so they follow those state statutes. But it is advertised on their website, their webpage, to the public-facing webpage, so that. And then we also let the adjacent property owners know of the upcoming auction as well, so that if they want to bid.
Yeah, I'm noticing a trend right now, especially in the last several months, of vehicles, trucks and cars that are just getting more and more dollars than ever before. The same one. It's
Thank you.
amazing. Just wanted to put out there that's why it's important.
Thank
Just
you, Paul.
with that, we're selling these things at market rate. When the market goes up, great. If the market goes down, not so great, but it's at market.
Gary.
Tying to what Commissioner Savas is saying about auctions, there is a local contract review board rule that last year's board authorized that me as the administrator that for donations, my memory is if it's $5,000 or less, I have the authority to authorize a county-owned property be donated. And I'll just give the example. There are some examples of prior sheriff's office cars, vehicles, that were determined the value was under $5,000, and in case Sheriff Brandenburg asked they be donated to another local law enforcement agency. So where does that tie into this? So.
Yeah, the LCRBs cover donations of personal property as well. So the donation we wouldn't do donations to county employees, so this particular policy doesn't cover that either. And I should just say, the policy is coming before the board because it's also covering all elected officials, so not just the employees.
All county elected officials.
Yes.
Yeah, Paul.
Yeah.
Just want to say that in that one instance, I showed Gary some examples of some cars that were going for in excess of $5,000. So how that's determined is by actually doing some market research to see what the value really is.
Interesting.
So if someone says it's worth $1,500 and it's going for more than $5,000, that's a big delta.
Any other comments on this particular issue? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion, do we need?
We will approve the policy today, Commissioners.
I move we adopt the policy.
Second.
Option one.
A motion has been made by Commissioner Schrader and seconded by Commissioner Fisher. Any further comment? Hearing none. Shannon, please call the poll.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much for coming
Thank you.
forward. Gary, what's up
Thank you very
next?
much. All right, we're back ahead of schedule. We'll go back to the issues list. Your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, August 12th. It's an evening business meeting at 6 p.m. You have 2 public hearings. One is to transfer a road from Clackamas County to the city of Canby, North Locust Street. Second is the third reading, or fourth reading, I forget the readings, on your secondhand dealers code change. And then you have a lengthy consent agenda. So if you have
So we
any.
just have one hearing this week.
Correct. Right, because you're going to postpone the, wait. No, I'm sorry. You have 2 public hearings, one on the road transfer, the second on the secondhand dealers. You did have your policy session. Did you agree to move forward on that? I've lost track of time now. You had a policy session on the secondhand dealer's license, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we're
and
supposed
so
to be for hearing this Thursday, right?
hearing this Thursday, yes.
Yes. Okay, good. But any questions on the items, please let me know. COVID, I'm adding a topic to your agenda because I really want to just make it clear on what we're doing on COVID updates. So I want to be clear, I'm the one who actually suggested not having verbal COVID updates before the board after July 1st, when it appeared the world was opening up again, our state was reopening again, the governor removed her COVID restrictions. And then, of course, times have changed since then, but I was the one who made that call.
I'm going to go get my mask because you just reminded me.
It's okay. It's optional. It's optional. All right. So what the plan is that Philip, our health director, and Daniel, our disaster management director, they're going to send a weekly written report to you commissioners on the status of COVID-19 in Clackamas County. They're also doing a slide deck that will be posted online for the public to see every week, as well as our county web pages are updated, and anytime there's a need for an update. As you have questions, commissioners, you can email them to me, and I'm happy to get you the answers you need. You can ask questions in public. We'll get you the answers you need. As the situation changes, we can go back to verbal updates, but again, our staff doesn't know much beyond what you're reading in the paper. They'll update you as frequently as they can. So I also have a suggestion. If any of you feel you're not getting the information you need, we could do what we did last year, where all questions go to the chair. And the chair will help facilitate that and work with me and staff to get those questions answered. So I guess there's been confusion, at least on my part. I'm the one who did this, so you can hold me accountable, responsible. If you disagree, let's talk about it. But I'm the one who took off the verbal COVID updates each week. You're getting a written update. Our websites are updated. Social media is warranted. Just trying to help be responsible with information, not overwhelm you or the public, but also if it's not enough, then I want to hear it. So I'll get Chair if you want to add to that or not.
I'm going to request, and since this has already been done, it's already a policy, and I'm going to reinstitute a policy that has been done. All COVID questions be presented to the chair. This has already been done with the last chair. And any updates anybody would like to give regarding a review of the slide decks, they will not be presented during commissioner comments. You can talk about them, but I think this topic deserves very deliberative and contemplative thought going forward as to not to alarm the public, but to maintain our good public health awareness and programs that we're doing. And I think that's not too much to ask as chair. I'm going to implement that policy today. All staff will submit their questions. If staff gets any requests from commissioners, they'll go through me, of which I'll take to Gary, and then we'll go over them with Philip. Commissioners, I'm going to take this one step further. You got an email today from either Emily or I regarding the liaison positions. And on page 1, on Chair Smith's liaison position, it says, I'm the public health liaison. And as chair, I do take that seriously. And I read through this and I thought, this is really interesting. And I came to Commissioner Fisher And Commissioner Fisher, you are the Public Health Council representative. Those are two very different animals, in my opinion. So from here on out, I would wish that people would refrain from espousing that because I am this or this. I have never once said, I've never tied my identity to the fact that I am a liaison position. And as I have said before, in liaison positions, we do not instruct staff. We do not go overboard in requiring information after information. Martha, did you hear what I just said? Did you miss what Gary and I said? Any further comments, questions regarding to COVID and the updates goes through the chair. And that was a policy that was implemented before I came on board. And I'm re-upping that again upon Gary's recommendation. I will take all of your questions. If you want to flood me with 1,000 questions, go right ahead. I will handle that. Gary and I will sit down and ascertain them with Emily and Philip, our public health director. But there will be no slideshow presentations presented in commissioner communications. If we come to a time that we need to do that, it will be presented by by Philip, our public health director, because he can address those, I think, more accurately than any commissioner. As I will remind us, none of us are experts. We're all generalists, and that's the way it's going to be.
Okay, so I have a question for you, though, Chair. Okay, so, like, for instance, I get stuff from, like, Johns Hopkins. So if I was to, like, talk to you and Gary, would you care if I did? I don't need a slideshow, but if I just said, hey, this is what I'm hearing from
You know,
Johns
any
Hopkins.
commissioner can talk about what
Okay.
you want, but I'm going to refrain from slideshow presentations. If you want to quote a source,
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm talking about, Gary, help me with this, help me identify what we're doing. Any questions that would require staff or policy to do, and I will be very careful about putting even Johns Hopkins, because you're going to find,
Well, it's all-
Commissioner Schrader,
it's-
as we move forward.
It's all fluid.
Anything we say is going to be controversial in one camp or the other. And I've mentioned before to this board that I feel like I'm dancing on the edge of a razor blade. And if you want, so I would be very careful about putting anything out except for the policies already in place. We are continuing to monitor our health situation in Clackamas County. We are encouraging people to get vaccinations. They are not mandatory. Masks are not mandatory. They are recommended and optional in Clackamas County. I intend on saying that. For instance, Philip said, this week, our vaccination rate, are you aware, vaccinations last week in Clackamas County were over 3,000? Are you aware the week before that was 2,771?
Great, that's good.
And the week of July 13 through 19, we had 2,837 vaccinations. So as more information comes out, if more people are being aware, as the opportunities exist, and I suppose in private conversations they're having, our vax rate will probably increase, albeit slowly. I had a conversation with Governor Brown last week, and she actually commended Clackamas County on how well we're doing. She says you're doing a lot better than most other counties. And I explained to Governor Brown the diversity and disparity that exists in our county is extreme. I said, if any county in Oregon can mirror the state of Oregon, it's Clackamas County. We have some of the richest, most prosperous communities. We have some of the most disparate and underserved communities, all in one county. And they come from different constituencies, but we represent them all. And that goes to show in our vaccination rate, as we know where vaccinations are high and not high, and I'm not about to call out any community here today. And I told Governor Brown that this board institutes policies on our public health with that in mind, that we are very active, that we are doing everything we can to get the vaccination out. I even told her I went so as far as to wanted a vaccination van at the county fair, although I understand that it's not going to be doable. Maybe you guys got the same information. Okay, I tried. I tried with them. It's not going to be doable. Our public health people said no on that. But that doesn't mean we can't be there with information to hand out where to go. So that's the way it is. Any further questions? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Smith. I am more than happy to include you as chair on any information gathering, but I don't think we as duly elected officials can be stopped from getting information.
No, you can't be, and I didn't say that you were going to be stopped. You misunderstood me. I said any questions that you want to present publicly needs to run through the chair, just like last time, and I think you're very familiar with what happened last time with this board.
Maybe I'm missing something. Honestly, people are interested in what's going on specific to Clackamas County. The media does not present what's happening specific to Clackamas County. The public is interested in that, and I do think it's important. I'm very happy that the information is going to be online. There'll be a slide deck online. I think that's all really good. I had a conversation with Philip this morning, and I can't remember exactly because I don't have the exact numbers, but our count in Clackamas County went from 404 last week to, I think, 594 cases this week, an increase. I might be a little bit wrong on those numbers because I don't have them. That is very concerning. The issue that 20% of those deaths in Oregon were people who are vaccinated. I have questions about that. My question is there a trend? Are these people immunocompromised? Did they get their vaccines early? Is the vaccine wearing off? Is there anything that we can glean from this? What does this mean for our public health?
And I have
response?
asked those same questions as you might have been listening, so send them to me and we'll get answers when we get answers. The questions that you ask, I don't know if there are answers to yet.
Right.
And put them towards me. But look, this is a situation that I think needs to be managed thoughtfully, and that's just, unfortunately, Commissioner Fisher, when you bring a slideshow deck in on a short amount of time before the business meeting, you don't give your fellow commissioners, including the chair, notice of it happening. I take great task with that. That is not what we do. If you want to do something, you present it, you go through issues just like everybody else. I'm waiting to have, frankly, every commissioner here has wanted something through issues. Put it through issues, we discuss it. We don't come in at the 12th hour before the business meeting and blindside our commissioners with a slideshow. That's not going to happen again. Administrative staff will not do that. Philip will not do that. And Gary will not do that. This is why we're having this conversation today.
Well, I don't think stifling any of us from what we would like to communicate in commissioner communication is a precedent that any of us should support. Now, I didn't think, and forgive me for not understanding, I'm still a little shocked that information that Philip told me, please share, this is information to be shared.
And it's shared on our website.
Yeah.
It's shared on our website, and that's how it's going to be from now.
Public. It's like we need, trust in government is about transparency and being responsive to all of our constituents. And so providing accurate, correct information is very important. And I will.
And we will, and at which time, if we need to do that, Gary Schmidt will make the decision as our administrator what information is going to be presented. But until then, all questions about COVID-related activities, public health, vaccinations, masking, mandates goes through the chair. I will then put it forward to Gary, and we will discuss it, and we will answer that.
Well, I would like to hear from my other commissioners as to any concerns that they may have about this. There was never a policy, Chair Smith, that was a matter of respect in the middle of an emergency of how we conducted ourselves.
Well, you know, I don't know what emergency you're talking about.
I'm talking about COVID, wildfires. It was a matter of respect to go through the chair to streamline communication so we don't overwhelm the administrator.
Well, then you shouldn't have a problem with it now. Respect the chair now.
I think Martha has something to
No,
say.
Paul's hand has up first.
Yeah, I think there's really a bigger, to me, I see really a bigger issue, and I won't go back into my prior experiences on different boards, not the county commission, when a lot of time was being spent, enormous amount of time being spent, both of the electeds and the staff. And it felt as though we were not getting a lot of work done, and we were just bogged down in one or two or three issues. And the long story short is that I think we've got to be respectful of the effectiveness and the time we all have. I feel as though there are certain topics that absorb a lot of time or come back over and over and over again to very little benefit. And actually, sometimes if you keep on repeating them and you get different new, they actually become confusing. So I think it defeats the purpose or the goal of trying to give accurate and clear information. I would suspect that if I want to convey or find a way to convey to the public the best information about something, like we talked about tolling, my suggestion was bring in some experts to lay it out, what it is, not us. I don't want to present a slideshow. Let the staff or the experts do that, and then we can listen from that standpoint. So whether it's COVID or it's transportation or it's whatever it may be, let the experts do it. Whether it's whether the medium or the venue is information on the website, or whether it's something they put together, that's great. If you had an opportunity to talk to Philip this morning, you had an opportunity, for example, to ask him any kind of questions that you personally may have. I imagine, like anyone else, if they feel that there's a good question that comes up, maybe that's something they add to their presentation. Great, but I think we need to talk about time management at some point, about everything, and roles and responsibilities. So we're getting bogged down. This little issues thing that we had 10 years ago was called Roundy Round. It was 5 minutes.
I remember.
Total.
Yeah.
All had 1 minute to give our update. Now it seems to go on for
It's turned into
1,
a
2,
policy
3
session.
hours.
Yeah.
It actually lacks transparency, because it lacks transparency because the material, and it's not deliberate, but it lacks transparency in that what we ask and what we present is new information that's not on the website. So we're, in a way, though we might have in our hearts the intent of being transparent and talking about it, it's less transparent. So the saying, less is more, and how we can communicate that, I think, is important. I'm all for good communication. We're going to be giving, on the last topic about support housing, we're going to be a weekly update. Frankly, I'll just tell you honestly, it's not really, we're doing that because we want to share the information, but really it's not even ready for prime time yet. And we're going to spend probably a lot of time from here on out in perpetuity, it seems, on this topic. And I'm afraid that frankly, less is more. When there's something of substance, of value, that to me would be more beneficial for all of us. And we could take that other time to do things that are also important. There's a lot of ground we're not covering because we're preoccupied with a lot of some just things that repeat and repeat and repeat, and we're just going around in circles.
I would agree with that.
So would you say public health information is that?
Do you want?
Okay.
I'm saying the venue, the venue or the communicator should be the staff or the website.
Oh, I agree.
Okay,
Should be staff.
not us.
That's right.
It's not my job to do a slideshow on tolling.
It's not any of our jobs. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I was going to suggest a compromise here. Why don't we just, every time we do it, why don't we just put our website up for people to check out public health information? Simple.
That's fine.
Why don't we just do that? And then just refer to it and say, for the most current, accurate public health information, here's the website, here's the information, and just
If
do it
there
as
is
a
a
matter.
major policy shift in
Yeah,
our
do it as a
public
matter of
health,
course.
we will have Philip come forward. But
Yeah.
But
Oh.
this has been, a year and a half almost. I can guarantee you, our public is weary of this. Our public, across all spectrums,
I know
want
they
us
are.
to move on as a government and show leadership. So I'm very serious about these COVID questions and presentations coming through me, and there's been precedence
Okay.
for this before. And I will give it to Gary, and for Philip, And if it needs to be addressed, then one of them can come forward, or we can
Okay.
put it on the website. But not every week is a COVID crisis. And I'm trying to be very deliberative in this. Yes, there are circumstances happening that are out of our control. Okay, but it doesn't mean we react to them on a daily basis out of control like they are, because we are the leaders. Mark, do you have a comment?
Well,
Our microphone, please, sir.
what I'd say is what Commissioner Savas said about focusing the board on the important issues, not spinning our wheels on going over the same old thing all the time. So your idea to consolidate questions regarding COVID through you and then to bring them out as needed seems to me to be a good use of time.
Okay, we'll do that, and until something changes that warrants a more formal presentation. Sonia?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that, and I'll state again, that setting a precedent that limits any of our communications is a dangerous precedent.
And I'm not
During-
limiting, and you know that.
Well, that's what I
And you're
understood.
trying to back me into a corner.
No, so
And you
please
know
clarify.
that. You know that, and you're trying to back me into a corner. So
I'm
I
not-
won't be as backed into a
So
corner.
so then we are, and just to clarify, then our commissioner communication, when it comes to this Thursday, I can
You
share.
can talk about COVID, but I tell you, you
Okay.
can't be in such a way that you're presenting jumbled information that has not been through our public health official, and that's Philip Mason
Well,
Joyner.
Philip came up with the information and told me it was good to share.
Okay,
So
well,
that-
Philip will be, Gary, would you answer that about Philip?
Actually, we just had my performance review earlier. The county code says all requests for information through staff goes to the administrator. Obviously, we're a very large organization, and I don't want to have to do that, but the county code does say that. So you have latitude to contact staff at your will to ask for information. I want to say it puts a lot of pressure on staff, especially poor Philip. He is leading that division. He has so much work to do with his team to make sure we're addressing multiple public health issues, not just COVID. And so I think the intent of Chair Smith's request is, it's not just Commissioner Fisher, but many of you are contacting, in this case, Philip, with questions. So if we can consolidate it to one source, whether it's Chair Smith or me, that we can compile all your questions. In many cases, there are overlaps, and then make sure they're answered in a very consistent, timely way. And that's what Chair Smith is asking for as far as COVID. We did it last year with Chair Bernard. It worked very effectively. Yes, that we were at the early days of COVID back then, but it was very helpful for me and staff to know that we were consolidating all questions in a single place. I don't think Chair Smith is saying stifle your commissioner communications, but it's certainly,
And you know I'm not.
if you want to present information on public health, it's best for Philip to come and do that. And I'll say that puts pressure on, I don't want any of our staff to feel pressured, especially your business meetings, when there are many members of the public here who have different opinions on COVID, and some of the meetings have been hot. It's been tough. I don't want any of our staff, any of you commissioners, to be put in that spot where there's a debate going on with members of the public in the hearing room. So I'm just trying to protect staff, allow them the chance to do their work, and also make sure you get the information you need.
Yeah, and thank you for that clarity. Chair, can I just make a few more comments? Okay. The real issue is that we have people in this county, some are going to follow public health protocols, others aren't, and that's part of the problem. It's part of the issue that we deal with. And what happens in these meetings, it becomes a debate. And all I can do as a commissioner is advise them, I'm going to wear a mask, I'm going to wash my hands, when possible, I'll keep distance. But there are people that, for whatever reason, they don't, that's not what it's going to be. And so part of it is when we do talk about it, it does. I don't care if people throw tomatoes at me, I'm used to it. But yeah, when staff's here, I worry about it, okay? And all I want to do with this is just say, okay, listen, here's a public health website, because we can't mandate.
That's fine.
That's it. Just public health website.
I
Check
already agree
this
to
out.
that. That's fine. I don't have trouble. I do have trouble of a commissioner presenting public health information.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, I wouldn't,
I didn't
yeah.
want to do that, but when cases are rising and there's a serious concern and we are not, it's not on our agenda, and had suggested that it be put on our agenda, and it was not, then there's no other option to get the information out. And
I
Chair
think-
Smith, I did let people know that I would be doing that with, of course, Commissioner Schrader assisting.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to get into a debate publicly with
Yeah, and I
people who don't
either.
agree with
Would
us.
much
'cause
rather have our public health director
Because
in.
we have constituents that, like the chair said, was, you're walking on a razor blade with this one. You know, I know what I'm going to do. I can't make anybody else do it. It's great that other places can mandate this, but if you try and mandate anything in this county, you're going to have the whole room full.
Well, I tell you.
And
just-
that's even worse.
Just wait till this Thursday night. I tell you, it's.
Oh,
It's
really?
heating up, yes. My inbox is full.
About not wearing masks and stuff, or all that? I mean, I guess the thing is, our job is
That's
to.
why I'm trying
To-
to manage this situation for our own
Okay.
good. I
Right.
do not need any rogue commissioners out there espousing public health information, either on case counts, vaccinations. I just shared some information here on vaccinations. This was I was contacted by AP reporter to do. I'm contacted almost daily, by the way, from the media, and I accept very few. And this information I got because they wanted to know what Clackamas County was doing on the public health front. And these questions and answers came through our public health officials, through the AP reporter. They were written, so there'd be no doubt about that. And so, as chair of this commission and as the leader of Clackamas County, I am contacted at least once or twice a day for interviews. I accept very few. I'm just telling you, I've been extremely responsible, and I've been extremely limited in my public comment. And I'm trying to manage it with Gary, Emily, and our public health official, and it's not too much to ask for every single other commissioner to do the same.
Okay.
And I am very clear on this today, commissioners. Gary, what's up next?
Commissioner Savas, did you have a question? You done?
I would just say, if one way commissioners to communicate or get people the information is go to the website. I don't know how much for weeks now, the landing page is this, COVID-19. There's tons of data on here. It's
tons.
updated. It's complete.
Yeah,
It's not our
website.
spin of it. It's all of it. So it's unbiased. It's coming from our official. It's updated. And if maybe we come up with some information, I think it might be a good idea to say, hey, Philip, are you aware of this? Maybe you could add that if he feels it's okay. But for the most part, I think the information.
Well, that's fine.
On the website, we
Yeah.
direct people to the information, direct them to it, not present it, but direct them to it.
Yeah, that's all.
That's fine. Okay. That is clear, commissioners. Let's move forward, Gary.
Okay, back to the policy sessions. The next policy session is New County Courthouse Project Update. Gary Barth, the project coordinator, project manager for the courthouse, is here. This is an informational update only. No decisions today, just an informational update on where we're at. Thank you, Gary. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Nice to see you all in person. Quick update to provide you a status of where we're at in the courthouse, and then at the end, perhaps get some input from you on how you'd like these updates to occur going forward. As you know, you took action back in May that authorized us to proceed with the P3 procurement effort. You did it through your May 5th study session and the May 20th resolution adopted at the business meeting. We then waited for the state legislature to do their bond authorization for their share of the project, and they did that on June 23rd. And so with that, we felt confident to proceed with the issuance of the request for qualifications. So the RFQ went out on July 1. We had an industry day that was very well attended, a webinar. It was an industry hour, not so much an industry day. We had over 70 registrants. They could have represented teams, so it's not 70 teams that necessarily registered, but it was individual firms for that webinar. Chair Smith, Administrator Schmidt, and Presiding Judge Steele all presented at that, and then I walked the attendees in that webinar through our process and the project overview. very well attended. That resulted then in about 70 firms, it looks like, based on what we pulled from the Business Oregon, or the Oregon Buys website. That used to be Orpin, and now the State of Oregon's procurement site that the county uses is now called Oregon Buys. And that, I had a procurement pull me a list of all the firms that registered in order to get access to the RFQ. And we had 400 lines, about 6 lines per registrant, so that works out to about 70-plus entities signed up to review that RFQ. And then that resulted in 40 follow-up requests for information that we received. And we set up a very streamlined system. Everything came in through Mr. Rice in the procurement department under Elizabeth's division. And then we forwarded it into our consultant's WT, where we documented it, put it into standard form, and then the entire consultant team crafted a response to that request for information. And then we would send out, so we sent out 2 updates answering all 40 of those inquiries and issued 2 addendums to the contract to clarify a couple of pieces, or addendums to the RFQ. So that process has been moving very well, a lot of interest. The deadlines for submission to the RFQ was originally targeted for the end of July. We, by the request of some of the respondents, we extended that to August 12th, which is Thursday. 11 a.m. Pacific time. All the statement of qualifications, the SOQs, will be required. That'll be the deadline. They'll come into procurement. And then our next step is the consultants are all going to get copies of all those submittals to check for form, make sure, and procurement will do the same, check for compliance of form to the standards of the submission. And then we're going to meet, the consultants and the evaluation committee will meet a week from Thursday to get the consultants will be giving the evaluation committee input, their opinions, their technical consultations of all of those statement of qualifications that came in from the teams. We will then meet the following Thursday, the evaluation committee, to score the statement of qualifications. And again, we're not looking, this is not the request for proposal. We're scoring based on their competencies and their qualifications to do the project. So they'll be evaluated based on their past experience, their team structure, their abilities to arrange the financing plan, so it'll be very robust. We've mentioned before this project agreement that we're ultimately working towards is really 4 contracts in one. It's a architectural design contract, it's a construction contract, it's a financing agreement, and it's a operating and maintenance contract. And those are all, we're drafting one project agreement that incorporates all 4 of those elements. So you'll see from the criteria of the scoring of the qualifications, we're scoring them on general qualifications and then each of those key areas. Their qualifications in design, their qualifications in build, qualifications in finance, qualifications in building operations. From that, we will select the top 3, and we will issue the request for proposal along with a copy of the draft project agreement that contains all of the contractual provisions for those 4 elements. We're getting very close. We have our final call tomorrow with the consultant team and staff. We've been exhaustively going through a couple 100-page project agreement and a request for proposal. We're probably going to be doing a scheduled all-day page turn, reviewing all the key elements of that with county council and subject matter experts from our staff. We'll have Elizabeth's and finance group going through the page turn exercise of the financing component, the facilities group going through the technical aspects of the building operations, and the occupants of the building, court staff, DA staff, and the sheriff's going through some of the technical requirements in our building specs to make sure we've got everything all kind of dialed in of what this project is supposed to accomplish. That RFP is scheduled then to be dropped on around September 12th to those 3 proposers. And then I've included a schedule here of how that 1-year process will lay out. Beginning September, I guess actually we got September 14th here, I'll clarify, listed in our schedule. And the target is to have a preferred proposer selected and the final project agreement for board approval and financial and commercial close in August of next year. That would conclude the procurement phase and initiate the final design and build phase, which would be about a 30-month process. We hope that by the end of the procurement process, by next summer, we'll have about a 30% design from these competitions, these 3 competitions. Each firm will complete about a 30% design of their proposed solution. So whoever we pick as the preferred has to just complete the design and carry it forward, because we would have selected them based on their 30% schematic. And so that design process should move fairly quickly. We've already made contact with the City of Oregon City, had a conversation with City Manager and Community Development Director, get them lined up and on board because they're obviously the jurisdictional authority for land use approval and construction permits. So we want to be sure we're way ahead of the curve with them so that there's no delays in the project because of regulatory approvals at the local level. So taking all those steps, and then finally, we've also got some projects that we can initiate now in preparation. We're doing an updated traffic analysis that was required by the City of Oregon City whenever the next big project got built on the Red Soils campus or within 10 years after DSB. And so the 10-year window came up first. So facilities is already initiating a traffic analysis, and this is a full campus impact analysis. It'll go all the way to the bypass to 213, Malala Avenue.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a pretty extensive analysis. We've also initiated now the environmental geotech analysis of the site to get those updates done so that the proposing firms will know exactly what site conditions they're dealing with when they're preparing their proposals. So we're trying to do everything that we can to, keep the time moving so that the project company can really hit the ground running once that selection's made and the contracts are entered. So feel very good about the progress where we're at. I think it's moving very, very well.
Okay, Gary, thank you very much. I have a couple just real quick questions, and then commissioners feel free. You said you extended the deadline for RFQs till August 12th based on requests from some submitters, correct? I find that really kind of unusual. Why did they want more time?
We had a very aggressive, we knew it was a really aggressive deadline of July 31st when we issued the RFQ on July 1. So we knew 30 days to put together the package we were looking for. Our expectation was so many people have been following this project so far along that they would have already been preparing a lot of that package. But we got a request from several who said that because of resource constraints, they've had people off on other projects and assignments. So just to make sure they could get all their critical team participating in the submission, they wanted a couple extra weeks. And
So we extended that deadline, but are we still going to be able to make the September 14th deadline, because since we extended this deadline?
Yes. Yep, we extended that. We knew we could still get the RFP out and stay on the timeline to still target completion in 2025 is kind of the end goal.
So during this design process, at what point does the people who are doing the design listen to community expectations or this board's expectations or the judge's expectations onto the design of it? Because I have made some statements. Paul has made statements. Martha has made statements. Those are the ones I remember off the top of my head. At what, for instance, on intent, we approved this with a certain intent in mind. For instance, mine was a 30% grossing factor. I think is way too high on this. I hope people were listening to that. I hope they were listening to, not excessive use expenditures on artwork, for instance. We have a unique art situation in Clackamas County where we can use our natural resources as our form of art, for instance. Just stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So at what point does any of that considered, or not? Maybe it's not.
It'll be a very inclusive and comprehensive process. We've got up to 4 one-on-one meetings scheduled with each team to do over various elements of the project, including, the financing plan and the design structure. And there will be, through these components, there will be some community engagement exercises as well. Because each of these three proposing firms are not going to get to the finish line and know they've got a 30% design that's unacceptable to the board or unacceptable to the community. And they don't want one that's going to be not permitted by the city of Oregon City. So they've got all the due diligence to do to make sure that they're designing a package.
So on your activity chart on dates, at what point during these dates does that process happen?
We haven't determined on these 101 what the specific element will be that we'll be discussing at that part. That still is to be kind of laid out as we get into the fall, as we start laying out. The first one-on-one meeting is scheduled for October 26th through 28th. That will probably be, more of it just making sure all of the understandings of the project are clear and the expectations are clear. We'll probably be sharing with them the mass timber work that the University of Oregon done, just as a reference, saying, hey, this is free, use it as you choose, but here's some interesting creative ideas on mass timber and life cycle costing of mass timber. Just making sure all the elements are composed. And the balancing that we've got is to make sure that we get a facility that meets the OJD requirements as outlined in OCIF, but meets your affordability requirements. Because they're going to occupy it and we're going to pay for it. So that's the balancing act we want. We want to get an optimal package that gives us the best design at the best value, and that's what this iterative process will be. And ideally, one team will start kind of emerging a bit, through the process. But hopefully, they're all going to be really competitive, and hopefully, it's going to be a very difficult decision at the end. That we've got three great proposals to evaluate.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, I'm interested in Chair Smith's question. I'm not quite sure that I get where the community engagement piece is going to be.
Well,
and how that will happen. I know that early on we started a process with a lot of community engagement. I was involved in Multnomah County's courthouse as an attorney. There was a tremendous amount of community engagement. What will be our process regarding design?
Yeah, and this is because we're doing this two-step process where we're doing a 30% schematic with three different firms, three different teams. So we're going to have three different architectural firms working on design. And then once we make our selection, they're going to have to complete the 70% design. So there'll be some community involvement as they're each doing the 30%.
Okay.
There'll be a lot more community involvement and they're doing the final 70%.
Okay, and what will that look like?
We don't have the plan defined out yet. We're going to be working with PGA on that community engagement process, and with each of these teams are very familiar with the need for, and we'll be looking for their community engagement responses in the RFP.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Gary?
I have
Martha.
a quick, so isn't Jim Edwards the person that developed Cruise Way, right?
Jim developed Cruise Way,
yeah.
for Bircher, and he also
Yeah.
developed, I want to say Arinco out in Hillsborough area, another Class A office campus facility. And most recently, if you're familiar with the new waterfront project in downtown Vancouver.
Oh, yeah.
Old industrial site.
Oh, yeah, that's
The
gorgeous.
Burlington Northern Railroad is now a beautiful mixed use. And Jim was the project manager on that for Barry Kane and Graymore.
Oh, man, that is something.
So Jim has got, and he was on the Economic Development Commission, you may recall, back in the day.
I remember him. I remember he was a great, I'm glad to know he's still around.
When we were looking for somebody in the kind of from the private sector to kind of bring that kind of perspective, and Jim was the very first gentleman I thought of, because he's kind of semi-retired now. He lives in Westland, but he's still really active.
He's involved in all of this.
He's
cool
really
stuff.
interested in what happens in Clackamas County. It's his home, and so he
Couldn't have a better person.
couldn't have a better person, yeah, and he was gracious enough to step up.
He's a good guy.
Even when I told him the pay was.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, just curious, when do we, and I'm assuming it's going to be out there a while, but I'm just kind of curious, when do we have a better idea if this project, if with the inflation we're seeing, or this construction cost spiraling upward, when are we anticipate being informed about if it's looking scary or out of reach or whatnot, I mean, at what point? And at what point is it wise to be informed where we are so we don't have a stranded investment?
I think that's an excellent question because we had rapid inflationary increases, and then COVID hit, and then we actually saw a decline, and then you saw what happened to commodity prices here in lumber just in the last few months, but now that supply chain is caught up and lumber's back down to a normal. So this thing has just been crazy, and labor's a challenge right now as well. But I think, to answer your question, I think that'll probably be one of the first topics of discussion. They all know what our affordability ceiling is, and that any proposals that exceed your affordability will not be considered. So they've already had that heads up, so if they think it's going to cost more than that, they should have given us that information during this RFI process where they sent in their request for information. We haven't got any pushback. The consultants have said they've gotten a little feedback, and everybody's fairly comfortable right now, that they think they can, bring in a project under the parameters. But I think those first conversations with those 3 finalists will very much focus on, okay, give us your take on labor supply, commodity supply, construction cost escalations and inflation, and how's this looking for us. But I agree with you. We won't. The cost we're incurring now is procurement costs, but we will absolutely make sure we don't spend any commitment until you sign that project agreement that locks in a guaranteed maximum price next summer.
Yeah. Did you say that lumber prices are back to normal?
That's what I had heard like 2-3 weeks ago. That the supply chain had.
Not what I'm pricing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll just tell you, they're down a little bit, but they're still heavily inflated.
I got caught in that. I did a bunch of
And the huge irony of that
remodeling.
is the supply is tremendous. I mean, with all of the logging and the mills going on, they can't take logs fast enough because of the fires, because of the ice storms. So I am at a loss why there's such a disparity.
There was a lot of that just-in-time inventory control. A lot of folks, they only ordered what they, and then all of a sudden when they got behind, they started, and then the supply chain just couldn't catch up suddenly.
Oh, I see.
So the commodities there, the product's there, but getting it through the manufacturing process is, but I waited 3 months longer for a window on a remodel that I was doing. I paid 2 to 3 times for the lumber on a remodel I was working on. So, yeah, it's a tough time.
I want to just add that one of the bigger challenges, because of all the money coming in, infrastructure money, and if this new infrastructure package passes, and the president signs the bill, that there's going to be a shortage of personnel, people, materials, everything, and that is going to create a whole different crisis.
Yeah.
So that's really what I'm concerned about, and that was actually predicted several years ago when. When the Trump administration was in place, they were talking about a big infrastructure package back then. And they were being told, the counties were being told, and government was being told, get ready.
Get shovel ready, yeah.
Get ready, because the sooner you go, you better get your stuff while you can get it, because there's going to be there's a shortage of personnel today. This was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So where it's going to come from, you can't spend the money because there won't be a place to spend it.
So I'm excited that we're at least underway on this project now with the procurement effort. So we're a lot closer to shovel ready than a lot of other organizations that may be going after some of that infrastructure funding.
So you don't have any idea when? About my first question.
I think before year end.
This year?
This year, yeah. Not final dollars, but I think we'll get an estimate for how realistic our expectations are based on what's happening in the marketplace. I did have one firm already said, we love your project, we've been tracking it for 4 years, but we're not gonna go for it because I've got too many projects I've been chasing, and I'm all committed up for the next couple of years. So we already lost one.
Well, I'm thankful for their honesty.
Yeah.
You can't do everything.
You can't do everything, yeah.
Especially when
And
we
you
have
wouldn't want them bidding on a project that they couldn't.
And we have a deadline, and we have a deadline that we're serious about. It's when you hire a contractor, a lot of them are very famous. If you want to remodel, or maybe they come and they work on your project for 3 or 4 days, and they're off doing another project. You don't see them again for 2 weeks.
Where did I learn that lesson?
And then, they come back. You call them and you insist they come back. I'm being very generous in my words here. They come back for a couple days, and then they disappear for 2 or 3 weeks because they're doing how many other different projects?
Yeah.
Because it's a greed factor, right? and you're suddenly a remodel job that should have taken a month, you're a year out. And it's very frustrating. So anybody who's in the building remodeling business, you might want to consider hanging up, putting your shingle on the wall and going to work.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Gary? This is quite enlightening. Thank you for the timeline. Thank you for your efforts going forward with this.
Thank you for all
And
your
Gary.
support. And then I'll wait for Gary to let me know on updates in the future, how you would like to schedule
Would you like to have
those.
standing updates or just as needed on the courthouse project?
Well, not every week.
A monthly, would you like a monthly update?
Is there something to report in a month?
A monthly might be a little too often, but
Let's
quarterly
think
is
about-
probably a little too late, so
Yeah,
maybe
how
on
about
key
every
milestones.
how about 6 weeks? Let's take a look at 6 weeks. If there's something to report, come. If not, don't. All right?
Okay, just put a recurring on the calendar so we always have it, and then.
Yeah.
Every 6 weeks, yep.
Perfect,
I don't think we need monthly, like you say.
yeah.
Okay, we will do that.
And if there's not something at 6 weeks, Gary, feel free to postpone it till later.
Okay.
And conversely, if there's something that comes up that I really think you might want an update on, like construction cost escalations, maybe we'll get a special session scheduled for you.
Okay, thank you, Gary. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary Barth. All right, Cindy, so Commissioners, you're 30 minutes ahead of schedule, but Cindy, are you ready to go? Would you like to jump ahead and power through the policy sessions? Or do you want to take a break, Chair?
Oh, we can go ahead with this. We
Okay.
just had a break.
Come on down.
And I just
All right,
took one.
next is Community Prosperity
go?
Initiative, final report. We have Cindy Becker from County Administration to deliver this report. This is an informational update, but it's the closing session of this project that's been almost 2 years in the making now, so 3 years, wow, all right. Cindy, go ahead, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm not really a visitor, but I forgot my badge today, so good afternoon. I'm here to give you a summary of the final report. I sent that with your packet, I think, so you have it. There's also a large toolkit, if anyone wants it, I can send that as well. So this project began several years ago, and it's back in 2019. Can you hear me? Is this okay? Okay. So the project was designed to engage residents, businesses, the social service providers, and civic organizations, government organizations to come together to look at the two issues. One was helping people get out of poverty, and the other was people who had food insecurities. And so I think it was the previous board who designated the areas. There were 3 areas that were selected after data search and.
Canby, Estacada, Milwaukee, correct?
Yes. Hey, you read my report.
Sorry.
So in addition to and the county contracted with the Athena Group to lead this, and there was, in addition to the 3 communities, there was a CRT, a community resource team, which was made up primarily of county staff, but there was somebody from the community college, some local folks on as well, and they were there for advice and to guide the project. Bridget was supposed to be here, but I think she thought I was the 3, but we're fine.
Bridget Daisy?
Yeah. Okay. I think this project, probably more than others, really was the bad fallout of all of the disasters. With the 3 communities, and particularly Estacada, and all of the disasters between the pandemic and the wildfires and the ice, et cetera, it was very difficult to get local communities to keep together, to keep focus, and to keep moving ahead. I think it was an incredible effort, and I think the communities tried the best they can, but I will be honest with you and tell you it did not come out with the results I think that you had hoped at the beginning. I think 3 years is a long time for people to engage. It was also difficult, I think, for the county to find its role because we weren't in the driver's seat. We were really there to stand back and let the communities kind of figure out what they wanted to do. And I think that the topics, quite honestly, and you see this in the report, they were too broad. To try to get folks to come together about how you're going to get out of poverty and how you're going to avoid food insecurity. It's tough for the best of minds who focus on this every day, but to bring people together who may not have come together before and to try to address this was tough. I think the projects that they came with were good projects. Canby particularly was interesting because their issue wasn't that there weren't enough services. Their issue was they didn't feel welcome in services, and they didn't feel that they knew how to navigate services. And so, which is very unusual. Most people say, oh, I want more of this, that, but they were just saying, we don't feel welcome because they have a large Hispanic community. And so they really focused on coming up with surveys, checklists and this could be public agencies too, not just businesses, where the public agencies can go through these checklists to say, are you doing these things? Do you have these things? What are you doing to create a welcoming environment? And so they did a small pilot test on it. People were interested. I think it's something, to be honest with you, that has legs, and it's something that the county could help promote in other communities and with other public agencies. Estacada focused on internet access and training people how to use the internet, particularly training people how to use the internet for training. Obviously, one of the big roadblocks they had was internet. And so I know that you're going to hear, and you've heard already from Technology Services, that whole area is one of the areas that we're looking forward to expanding fiber in. So I think that in the next couple of years or a year or so, we'll have more access to that. They also were probably the most impacted by all of the crises. They also had some local community stuff going on that was just different political persuasions not doing well with each other. You know how tactful I am anyway. So it didn't. So they had that on top of everything else happening. And then Milwaukee, they had trouble focusing, to be quite honest. They finally came down to childcare. And as you know, childcare is not just a local issue, it's a statewide issue. And they came out with this really cool workbook for businesses. If you want to be interested in childcare, here's all the different avenues. Here's things you can do. Here's things you can contact.
We need that.
So it's something I think that, again, we can distribute to other folks countywide. And so, I talked about the challenges here. One of the big things that the contractor talked about is how do we simplify the process? Again, not only did we talk about these big ticket items, but we had this process and didn't cut it into simple terms. Not that these were simple people, but it was more jargony around the process, I think, and the phases and what phase are you in, and didn't really bring it down to folks at the level they needed to have the conversations. I think it really showed the importance of relationships. And again, I would hate to see the relationships that were formed in these groups to go by the wayside until the next project, came up. So if there's a way to continue some of those, I think it would be helpful. Again, I think I said because of the length of the project, it was hard to retain the same people, including the contractor had to turn over in folks. So I think, and the other thing that I would recommend, doing 3 projects at the same time, I think was I'll just call it out, mistake. I think we should have done one project, learn from that, do the next project, learn from that, and the next one. Instead, we did all 3, and it was a lot for everybody to move forward with. So I think there were some lessons learned. I think there are some things that we can take from these projects and move forward to other parts of the county. But to be honest, they didn't really get to the core of what the original task was. And for any number of reasons, as I just talked about. So I'm going to stop talking, and if you have questions, the one other thing, I'm going to continue talking. We did link in with the work that Martine's doing, and so she's particularly interested in Canby and some of the work around communities of color, and how can we impact that, and how can we take some of the lessons learned from this and move this forward so it's not completely kind of put aside. So I'll stop.
Interesting. You say your relationships that you developed were, you felt, maybe that's the big takeaway on this, that the outreach that was done and the participation, it shows to me that people wanted to participate and be a part of something.
Yes.
Well, what if we took those relationships that you have established and we apply them to one of our 21 zones on our emergency management plan? As you know, this board is considering 15-member emergency management council, and within that, at least 15 members. Within that, we'll have five 5 subcommittees. Each commissioner will be assigned one. But the overlay is that our OEM, along with our transportation department, has divided the county into 21 emergency zones in the event of a big situation. And what if we took that community engagement of those people and asked them if they would want to help participate in our planning and implementation of whatever this 15-member council comes up with? So we can take whatever you learned with this and transfer it over here and just not let it die.
Right, right.
So, I mean, you've obviously put some time in it. Obviously, money was spent on this. And we, you know, that's a big criticism that we get is, gee, we're not communicating. Communicating is really hard. So I don't know if that's possible. That's just an idea I'm throwing out to you.
Who is in charge locally? Who would I contact locally around the 21 emergency zones?
Well, us.
Daniel Neibauer, disaster manager.
Okay, disaster management.
Yeah. And we're still, when are we going to take this up, Gary?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, you might want to listen to our policy session. And then we're going to establish, I don't know, then we're going to move forward and get applications from the community members who want to serve on the 15-member council, and then that council will give direction to move forward. And in that, we have the zones that I am hoping that the council will implement. They need to do that. We'll have a couple subject matter experts on it, and I'm not sure who is leading that 15-member council. Who decides that?
Well, our disaster management department will staff the council.
Okay.
You, the board, will get to decide who the members are.
Okay, so it will be with Daniel. And because, you know, the devil's always in the detail of how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've done some good work, Cindy, and the people out there are familiar with, so far at least you, in the county.
Let me call it back. Actually, it wasn't me. I was a stage manager, if you will. And so what Athena did about halfway through, which I thought was really great, is they contracted with Clackamas Workforce Partnerships and Todos Juntos and Ant Farm. So you had people who lived here working with people in the communities as opposed to an outside consultant. And so they contracted with them, who actually did a lot of the work on the ground, which was great, and established some of those relationships. So I know that we can communicate through them.
And people in our workforce partnership, all those folks, they desire, I'm certain, to offer what they have to help out their communities. We all want to be of value, and how we be of value is we volunteer and doing, you know, a task, for instance. Yeah.
There's also the toolkit that they put together for the county has great tools available for community engagement. There's all different ways depending upon where you are in the process. And so again, that's available. We had a community engagement training by the contractor. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't great training, but the toolkit was really good. So that was important that we have that, and it's ours to use. And I also sent that out to folks around the county.
That toolkit, is it unique to this particular situation?
No, it's really a toolkit around their process, a design lab process, and so no, it's not specific to this. You can use it in a variety of different ways.
Okay, I like hearing that. Maybe we can use it in this. I don't know. I really don't know. But no sense recreating the wheel if we don't have to.
No, absolutely. I mean, we bought it. It's ours to use, and, you know, we should do that as much as we can.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, Cindy, I remember engaging in this on the onset and attending, you know, a couple of the sessions that were done on this, and back then I was struggling to understand how we would influence or help the people we were reaching out, and I just really wonder, going forward and reading the packet, I still wonder if this is something that is, if it's pursued, will we actually achieve the outcomes in which we want to pursue, which really seems like just putting more effort into it to establish more connections in education and so forth. So, but the goal, obviously, is helping people lift out of poverty into prosperity and just get a lift up. Which of these is going to do that, of the three models, or any of them?
There'll be none. But they have components. You know, again, I think it was a huge, you know, topics for people that you don't have relationships with yet. I just think, again, I think it's important to do it, but I think it's important to focus on specific, to get the quote-unquote right people at the table, so they really understand what the topic is, and they're committed to it, and they're interested in moving forward, and really identify what the county's role is, because the county struggled with its role. I mean, the fact that you weren't alone. And so folks didn't really know, well, if it's not our project, what are we supposed to do, and how do we do it? And you know, yes, lifting people out of poverty is really important, but again, I'm trying to figure out where my next meal is coming from, and I'm not going to be dealing with this whole huge issue. I'm really trying to focus on what I can do in my community.
Right.
So I think there are pearls from this that we can use and learn. I think that it was a great idea, but I'm not sure it was resourced the way that it maybe could have been. This started, I think, before, well, as I said, 2018, 19. It was about a year when the contractor had the contract that nothing was going on. This is before I got here. And so that was also a problem. I mean, I'm just being straight with you. I'm not sure that we set up the best infrastructure initially to have this be successful.
I do recall, one thing you did mention, I do recall from a listening session, it was a Spanish-speaking listening session that was trying to communicate with our communities out in Canby, for example. And what you heard is what we heard then, you know, is their trust, you know,
Right.
communication, navigation, or the lack of navigation that they needed, and trusting that they would be either welcomed
Exactly.
or follow through and so forth. So a lot of what came out of that was a lot of just lack of confidence from them that we were real, the county was real, the services were real, and we were genuine about what we were doing.
Yeah, and so I think the work that they did, as I said, I think has legs, and I think we can use that in other parts of the county and in the county, not county government necessarily, but county government. Just, you know, how are we making it a welcoming environment for people, regardless of their race or their political persuasion or their sexual persuasion? How do we make it so folks feel welcome, whether it's in person, on the phone, or in writing? You know, do we give people a bunch of forms? We tell people, you know, so there's things that we can learn from that. As I said, I think a child care report is great for businesses, and maybe you want to share it with the Clackamas Business Alliance. So there's some real good things there. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. We talked about childcare earlier today.
Great.
And maybe we should glean some of that information as we move forward. We're considering having a town hall on the child care situation.
So Wilda Parks was very, very involved in the Milwaukee one. So she would be a great person to include in the town hall.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, or accolades for our presenter today?
I'll take accolades.
Well, Cindy, thank you. You've been involved
Nice
in this project.
presentation.
For how long have you been doing this project?
A couple of years almost, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
So we had to do COVID again. I mean, we actually cut back on some of these outreach programs, knowing that they're not going to be that effective.
They were just starting, and then COVID hit.
I know,
and it was
I
just like,
remember. Yep,
and
I
they
remember.
tried to, you know, re-engage. It's difficult for people who don't know each other well to do this by Zoom, you know, so it's tough. Yeah.
Some situations are really difficult by Zoom. Very difficult, yes.
They are.
Gary, what's up?
Okay, very good. Thank you, Cindy. And Bridget Daisy is, you know, we started way ahead of schedule. She's here, the Executive Director of Clackamas Workforce Partnership. I invited her to say anything, but she said she's good. So thank you for your partnership in this, Bridget, very much.
This is great.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you,
Bridget.
Cindy. So we're still ahead of schedule, but the next team's here. Let's get right to it.
Can we just take a 5-minute recess?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, 5 minutes would be fine. Oh, Gary, you got a minute? Policy sessions, Gary.
Yes, first, Commissioner Fisher needs to leave, so is there any commissioner communications you'd like to give before you depart, Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we talked about everything today.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. So your final policy session, commissioners, is broadband expansion using ARPA dollars you approved a few weeks ago at a policy session. So this is just short and sweet. You've already approved the money. TS is going to remind you how they want to spend it. So we have Dave DeVore, Interim Director of Technology Services, and Duke Dexter, the manager of the Clackamas Broadband Exchange Program. Please go ahead.
Afternoon, Commissioners. We're actually kind of excited to be here. It's hard to believe that it's already been 10 years since we actually started the grant, and 8 years since we started delivering fiber, so things are moving. So we are here today to basically show you what we were proposing as Phase 1 of the ARPA funds, the $2.5 million that you all thankfully approved for us. We have some maps that we are proposing to deliver up to about 1,050 homes, and wanted to show those to you to see if what you all thought about that, if you had any questions. It is a mix of, I guess you could call it low-hanging fruit to hit some of the areas that are really good to hit, the cost-wise, and to some folks that have been really suffering for a long time, and really trying to make sure we hit those areas. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Duke to explain a little bit on the 3 different locations and see if you have any questions.
Yeah, so as part of the package, we provided 4 different maps for the 4 different areas. So the first one is Lusted Road. It's just a little bit north of Sandy, kind of going down, hitting about 7 to 9 homes in that particular area. There is Colorado Road and Gunderson Road, kind of southwest of Sandy, and kind of there's some good connectivity close, but not at these home sites. Extension of the fiber network out there. Government Camp, which has always been kind of a void for broadband up in that area. And then another road off of Highway 26, just kind of Welch's Rhododendron, Lilo Pass Road, and extend the fiber network up that way. And again, kind of provide connectivity, internet services to residents within that area.
One thing that's really nice about this is, as in line with the approval of our business plan that we had a few weeks ago, this is a partnership between CBX and local ISPs. So not only will we be dealing with providing services to these areas, we're actually partnering with other local businesses, so it's a twofer.
Nice.
So that's the plan that you guys all approved, saying, hey, decide we want to move forward, and we're doing it.
Wonderful.
The only thing I'll probably add is we are working with PGA and some of the folks to have a communications plan. There's going to be a lot of confusion as to who's getting hit and who's not and why. We want to make sure we have a communications plan ready to rock and roll as soon as we start and deal with the folks that have questions and those that are happy and probably not so happy, and make sure that we make sure the communications plan for the county is being maintained across the board.
So you have 4 projects listed here. And then number 5 surprises me as an underserved area, and that's west of Wilsonville. How did that happen?
So again, it's kind of out in a countryside type setting, and even though it's close to Wilsonville, maybe we think of Wilsonville as kind of being connected more of a metropolitan area. This is out in the far reaches, and you can kind of see, if you look at that, the cost per home passed to hit these 68 residents is roughly $20,000. So it's an expensive area to expand fiber.
Well, who else is out there? I mean, that's really the limits of our county boundary, isn't it?
It's up against our county boundary.
Are we going into another county?
We would not.
That's the only one that I'm questioning here, seriously.
Yeah, well, yeah, the cost per household, I mean, it's.
Go ahead.
Are you
Go
done,
ahead.
Judy?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is, are all 8 part of this whole thing, and you're just showing us 2 or 3 of them right now?
So the way that we've got this broken out are a total of 8 projects totaling $10.523 million. The first 4, 1 through 4, is 2.594, so more or less the $2.5 million that we would receive this year. The bottom 4 projects, 5 through 8, would be if we receive the additional funding next year in that allotment. Those would be the areas that we would look at extending fiber out into those areas.
Okay. So I'm kind of looking at my colleague, Commissioner Schrader, because she understands Clackamas County and the rural parts.
So where we, I'm trying to find the one which is
Obviously-
number 5. Is this the Mount Hood National Forest?
I don't think we have, no, West Whistlinville.
Oh, it's Wilsonville. Okay, that's what I'm trying to find it.
I only provided maps for the first 4 projects.
Oh, okay.
Because when I look at Clackamas County, I know for a fact the area between Moala and Estacada, the Colton area, there's a whole
There's a big
area
gap
out there that their internet is sketchy, and then we're doing West Wilsonville at a cost. I don't know what your reasoning is on this, I'm just trying to understand it, right, Mark?
Yes. Question. The Project 5, 68 households. And then I'm looking down at Project 7, Marmot Road. Marmot Road, very rural, okay? Very rural, yet it's 1,260 households, $1,900 each.
Yeah, I see.
So could you please clarify why West Wilsonville is so exorbitantly expensive?
Because it's,
When Marmot Road, those customers are also spread out, very rural area. Dang it.
I can respond on that.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
yeah, you're talking about the cost difference per home passed and everything
Yes.
else. So some of it ends up being, under our current network, what we have, what we need to do to expand our network to get into those neighborhoods. So some of the costs for West Wilsonville will be extending from our network over into that area. For Marmot Road itself, it's actually a very vast area. So if you're, I know you're pretty familiar with the area. Basically, it's the Sandy River north up to the border, up to Clackamas County border, all the way over to Lolo Pass Road. So it is a large tract of land that we would be extending our network up to. Absolutely correct. West Wilsonville is not as large and doesn't pass as many homes, but we do need to build some fiber to be able to get over to that area.
Okay, one more question. Don't tell the people of West Wilsonville I asked this question, but what about prioritizing that later into the future so that we can use that big amount of money to actually catch more people?
Absolutely. So again, some of the requirements is we are receiving some ARPA funds. There are rules, parameters that we have to play within for those, and we have to be able to designate the areas that we're going to as underserved. Although we will know that there are certain areas around Colton and Molalla and Estacada that will also fall within that underserved area. Right now, from the information that we have from the federal agencies, the NTIA, the FCC, right now, the West Wilsonville is one area that we can expand to. There are certain areas around Colton and Molalla that do not qualify at this time
Why?
because they are getting service at a level of 25 megabits down, 3 up.
And the West Wilsonville area is not served at all?
That's correct. They are under 25.3.
that's not fair, but it's the way it is.
And
Gary?
Sorry, you done, Commissioner?
one last question on
Yeah,
that.
certainly.
What if we waited on West Wilsonville until somebody else put a line in?
Absolutely. The only thing that I would say is they've had the last 25 years to put that line in, and it's still not there.
Okay.
They're going to look at the same
Who's
numbers we're
they?
looking at.
Well, I believe Zipley is out in that area. Used to be Frontier, and
Got
now
bought
it's
out.
Zipley.
Oh, okay, Frontier's now Zipley.
Frontier is now Zipley.
So the problem is that even though they may not be getting out in the rural areas, with what you just told me, 25 bits, it's too fast to get ARPA money for.
Yes, if they hit the minimum of 25.3, then we
Then-
cannot expend the funds in that area.
All right, so we have a more urbanized, well, an area that's not urbanized, but closer to an urban area that you would naturally assume would be, and it's not. And there, yeah, so,
It's just very surprising.
It's just
to
the
me.
luck.
Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah.
Okay. Gary?
I think you're hearing from the board, take it off the list. So find other areas to serve that can get more bang for the buck.
Okay.
Not a problem. We got enough on the list.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you for that,
okay.
Gary.
That'd be great.
Cut to the chase. We'll serve them eventually, but not in this first round or second
Okay.
round.
Well, my question was going to be, if we built the line to get out there, which is part of that cost per household, is there any opportunities to build upon that to serve other areas where that investment, that initial, which is why it's so high, could reap other benefits for other areas, should that be available? Or is it just really a dead-end cul-de-sac and it's not going to go anywhere after that?
Well, so no, the line that we would have to build out to it would be kind of a direct line out to that area. Then we would expand to that under the ARPA rules and the funding. But we could serve other people off of that, let's call it a lateral, the whole way out. So we could benefit some other households that would be lying just off of that lateral as well.
Okay.
That is allowed under the ARPA funding.
And give me an idea of how many households that might be that could benefit from that investment?
Somewhere between double the number to 3 times the number.
3 times the number?
Yeah.
So that's something to consider.
Yeah, but what's the investment in that going to be? I mean, and how soon can we get to it? I would,
3 times the number, that's not that big of, it's still 200 people, that'd be about 200 more homes on top of the 68.
Yeah.
but the
But
investment,
for cost.
yeah, but what is the cost? I mean, going out there.
Well, the 1.3 is for us to build a lateral out there and then expand the network within the area we've deemed West Wilsonville. I don't know the exact distance out there off the top of my
So it
head.
would be more houses long-term?
Yes,
is what you're
correct.
saying. Okay, so you're
Well,
trying to
I think
build
maybe
infrastructure.
we can consider that, Gary's right, on the next, we're not saying no to it, but not on that round. And we
Fair
just had a
enough.
conversation a little while ago. If the infrastructure bill from the Senate's approved, or they're in conference, I suppose, there's more money coming down, how many
Well, they have
dollars?
$65 billion at the federal level for national broadband.
Because so this area could qualify for that then. And we're not saying no to it, but we're not turning our back on it, but we know, and we have had conversations, that even though we've set aside $10 million in the ARPA funds for broadband expansion, that you guys have your ears to the ground, and there's going to be possible other funds that we can get to do this.
Anything we can qualify for, we're going to go for it.
You betcha.
These guys are always good at that.
I know they are. So
They're
I,
like the best
I
at
do
it.
want to temper it down just a tad.
He's always worried about it.
Areas in Clackamas County, we are, from an overall standpoint, we are fairly well served, as we've kind of discussed today. And there aren't many areas under the current guidelines from the federal government that are eligible for these federal dollars. With that said, if under this new $65 billion, they raise the level, so 25.3 is the minimum now, maybe they raise it to 50/50 or 100/100, that would open up a lot of other areas. But there aren't a lot of areas right now that we can expand the funds to be able to hit these households.
okay, what is speed a factor? Because even though some areas are served, the speed is so slow, only one computer in the house can run at a time. To me, that is an underserved area.
Correct.
What are you doing about that?
Well, at this point, we can spend CBX dollars on that, but we can't spend ARPA funding if they do meet the minimum of 25.3.
Because there are a lot of areas that you could say are underserved because their internet speed is so slow. And you're buffering, and you're buffering, and you're buffering.
That could be
trying to
more
get-
reliability than speeds
Well,
potentially.
I don't know what the term is,
Yeah.
but it's very frustrating. Paul?
Yeah, the other question I have is that we're talking about people that have poor service, but some service. How many people have zero service? And are we touching any of those? Does this touch any of those?
Yes.
Okay. Numbers? Can you give me a number? I forgot what my page just went.
Is some a number?
Yeah, some is a number. Actually, a sum is actually a SUM.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for the sum.
I don't have a number, but I can provide one.
Yeah, the sum of the sum would be great. Yeah, I agree maybe that maybe from a priority standpoint, we take a look at that Wilsonville one and maybe factor in some other rationale to make that one happen. But I would say getting service out to the ones that are lower cost might be. But there again, I think I would rather rush to get some people with no service or the worst service, something first. That would be your priority. But there again, you guys know your business, we don't.
Gotcha.
We get the numbers, we're trying to balance it between zero and low service, because like Chair Smith saying, you have 2 or 3 people on your computer at home, the service gets so bad it's almost unusable at some of the rates.
So those are all decisions for you to make next year on round 2 of your ARPA dollars. Today, the decision is only on the 2.5 and the first 4 projects for today.
Okay.
And you're buying cable for the whole 10 million, right?
That's what I thought you were doing.
Yeah, that's what thought you were doing. Securing the fiber.
That would be part of the next phase that we'll be doing soon. As soon as we know that's taken care, we'll be procuring all the fiber we need for the whole project.
Okay.
We just want to make sure everyone's happy with these 4, so we can get moving on these right away.
I thought we were buying fiber for everything. I'll say again, I thought we were buying fiber. That's why we allocated the 2.5 million. That was my memory. So now I'm hearing something different.
Well, we can go ahead and, it's going to
Well, I
take
don't
a
know.
while.
I don't know what you want to do. I just,
We can do the design on these and get the
Gary?
fiber and be prepared for the next
They are
round.
following my direction.
All right.
You have authorized a total of 10 million, but you've only given 2.5 right now. If you want them to buy the fiber for 10, you should give them 10 million right now,
Okay.
not 2.5.
Okay.
That's my request. This is feeding up to preparing for the second phase when you authorize the second batch from our second round of money. So if I've misunderstood you, now's a chance to correct me, but really you need to authorize 10 million now out of this portion of your ARPA dollars. Otherwise, they can't buy fiber on a promise. They need the money in hand to buy that amount of fiber.
Well, okay, well, that's one thing. So that's a question that needs to be answered. I agree, Gary. But I think my memories, like where Toody's got, I thought that was go forth and secure the fiber, because if we wait next year, there may not be any fiber. We had that conversation.
That you did, yes.
So, but I know that it doesn't cost $10 million to buy the fiber. A lot of it's the labor, right? So what does it cost to secure the fiber for all these projects? Which is a different question.
Yeah, I would have to go back and reallocate now, taking out West Wilsonville.
Okay.
But I could do that.
Right.
It will take us time to do the design work, so we can get the fiber now, get the design work started, and then doing the construction just a little bit farther down the line.
Yeah.
It's all doable.
Yeah, I just to say, you can imagine how difficult it'll be for all of us if you come back a year from now and you got the money, but you can't buy the fiber.
Agreed.
That will be difficult for all of us.
All right, do you all agree with that, commissioners? So go ahead and buy the fiber. I just want to confirm.
Do what you need, or come back with the price tag to buy the fiber. And, you know, they still need to spend a lot of money next year for the next round, but maybe it's a different number than 2,500, or 2.5 million this year and 10 next year, or 7.5. Maybe it's a different split to secure the fiber. Unless you have confidence there's going to be lots of fiber next year.
No.
I can secure the fiber.
Okay.
You know people.
Yes.
Do you need to come back with new numbers, or are you have certainty of what the board's asking you to do and move forward?
I feel pretty certain.
We'll take Westville off, reallocate, and get the fiber moving.
All right.
Okay.
any other comments from commissioners?
I forgot to do something under issues. And
Well,
that
we'll
is-
have issues in a minute.
So we'll come back to that.
Yes,
Well,
we'll
not for
finish
this, but.
Issue with us?
No, you guys are fine.
Oh,
I have
good.
a problem with you guys. You guys are the fun guys. No, right. You're always cheerful.
Do we have a motion, commissioners, please?
May I have a motion, please?
All right.
To approve the package. Okay, now what are we approving now?
The first three projects? First four projects. I moved to approve the first four projects.
Seconded.
Well, okay, we're going to move to approve the first four projects and buy fiber, correct?
Yes.
Okay, does the motion need to be amended?
Well, I guess my question is, if you're all comfortable just having them go buy the fiber, fine. But I thought it was, maybe go price the fiber to secure and then come back. But it doesn't matter. But if you.
Gary? Do we need to amend the motion for the first four projects and to buy the fiber?
So first, I'm taking responsibility for giving staff the wrong information. That's on me, so don't blame them. You can blame me. I'm just basing it on, From what I heard you, again, we talked about this morning, it's good to clarify. What I heard the board say last time is 2.5 million today. Yes, plan ahead to buy the fiber for the next round, but we're not getting the 7.5 until our next second round of ARPA dollars. I was being overly conservative because I was concerned it might be beyond the 2.5 million right now, but that's not what the board directed you clearly, so.
We can get the fiber, the 2.5 will cover the fiber, we'll get new numbers based on that, we know that's 10 coming for total project, and adjust it based on the instructions we had today, and we can come back if we need to, or we'll just get going on the fiber, whichever way you want us to
Okay.
go.
Okay.
That's fine. It's okay with me if it's okay with you.
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay.
So we do that then.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Shannon, please call a poll.
Can I clarify that, what the
The
motion
motion is to go ahead with the first 4 projects listed in the study session materials, policy session materials.
Excellent.
And to
Thank
plan
you.
ahead to buy fiber.
And to plan ahead to buy fiber.
Yep.
Thank you,
so
Shannon,
much.
for that question.
Commissioner Fisher?
She's not here.
Sorry, Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. I appreciate your enthusiasm and your passion for this.
Thank you.
Fun stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know you guys love it. Okay.
All right, so all that's remaining is back to the issues list. There's Commissioner Communications. Commissioner Schrader, you also wanted to add something?
Oh, I just wanted to mention Candy again. You know, they're trying to reduce the size of their parks district. And we got a letter from our boundary guy that was always coming here. I can't remember his name.
Ken Martin?
Yeah. And basically, what they are saying is their legal description of the city limits is not the legal description of the city limits. So, I think I need to call Candy because we don't want, it's not under our lawyers should not be like delineating their city limits. They should use their own city council and get that figured out. I just said it all, now it's off the record. Basically, Canby, they need to figure this out themselves to get the information they need for the accurate description of their city boundaries. And I think it needs to be their their city council that does that, not ours. But this is I can't tell you, this is Groundhog Day for me, again and again and again, so.
Well,
anyway.
I understand, and somehow it got back to me that they wanted the county to do the survey for them.
Yeah, and we're not going to do that.
No, it's not.
That's not, no.
This is what they want, they can do their own survey.
The city needs to step up to the plate. The advocates who want to do this keep coming to us. And back in the day, yes, they wanted the county to do it, and we said no then, and we're not going to say yes now, because they have a lawyer, I'm sure they do. They need to go to their mayor and their city council, and the city, I can't believe they don't have a legal description of their
Well, I
boundaries.
can't believe they
but-
don't either. I thought that the new boundary lines were going to be adjusted to their city limits.
That's
And then are you telling me they don't have a legal description or a survey of their city limits?
Evidently, that's the holdup, if you'd like. I didn't make copies of the letter.
Yeah,
that I
well,
got. Why don't I do that and get that to all of you?
I think we
then?
had a briefing on this.
Yeah, we did.
We did, and so
And it's reared its ugly
it's
head
problematic.
over time.
It's problematic. I think this commission is more than willing to accept their boundary change, since that's what our charge is, but we're certainly not going to pay for a survey for this city, then we're going to have everybody else lining up to do the same.
They do not meet, here's it is from Ken, they do not meet the requirements for use with an order, ordinance, or resolution in accordance with ORS 308.225. The dated April 30th, 1998 is not acceptable as a boundary change description. There we go.
Okay, so this goes back to 1998.
Well, it goes-
Same issue, new players maybe?
No, same players.
Oh, wow.
Nothing, it's Canby's Brigadoon, just kind of goes into the mist and then appears again. It's like, it's like I feel like I want to break into song every time they come out with this song.
So this is a district. It's not the city. It's a special district
It's
that
a
has its own
special
governing body.
district, and the bottom line is that we have the authority to reduce the size of it if they get the legal documentation in order. So I'm going to get on this. I just wanted to, Tracy said I probably should brief you guys on this, and I said, fine. So anyway, I'll go back to Groundhog Day and maybe call the mayor and say, could you please update your legal description of your city limits so we can get through with this. So,
Okay, good. What else?
all right, that's it for me.
So Commissioner Communication.
Commissioners, do we have anything you want to talk about? Mark?
Most of this, Chair Smith, can wait till Thursday, but
It's up to you.
I just want to pass on real quickly. Tonight, I got a meeting with the Stafford Hamlet. Thursday, a meeting with Father's Heart Ministry on homeless issues. Saturday night, CPO meeting with the government camp folks. And the rest of this can wait till Thursday.
Great, okay.
Oh, and my trip to Eugene to see the Little House project had to be delayed until the second week of September.
Is that the Lane County Commission project that
Yes,
they did?
that's right.
Pat Farr going to show you around?
Yes.
Oh, good for
He's a
you.
wonderful man.
Yes, Paul?
I think we've talked about everything.
Yeah, I know, I'm pretty much talked out. Commissioner Schrader, did you bring
I
up
have
something?
nothing else. I just want.
Well, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Commissioners.
Yay.
All right.